It's 6:30. I'd like to make a start. Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Councillor Mohammed Ayub. I chair Traffic Management Subcommittee. I would like to welcome you to tonight's meeting, which will be using equipment connecting to the chamber into Microsoft Teams meeting. There is a live stream available through the Teams, and a recording of this meeting will be uploaded to the council website afterwards. Right. Do I have apologies? I have one from Sue Kitchen. Any other apologies? Sue? First item, declaration of interest. Do I have a declaration for anybody from the floor? No. I like to make a Yeah, I'm just going to say, could you just wait? Yeah, I'm going to say. I have a declaration on item 5, which is the bus lane, which I'll be not chairing. I will ask my colleagues, Vice Chair of Traffic, Councillor Lorenzi, to chair that item when we come to it. Thank you. Item 2 is minutes of the previous meeting held on the 14th of June 2023. Can I take those to be correct minutes? Agreed? Thank you. Item 3 is questions from member of public and councillors. We have none from member of public. We have one question from Councillor White, improving road safety around schools.
Thank you, Chair. Recently, tackling parking problems around schools at the start and the end of the school day came up at the Traffic Management Subcommittee in the general discussion we were having. Green Party councillors often have concerns about dangerous, chaotic parking around schools in the town raised with us. What future plans does the council have to improve road safety around our schools at the start and the end of the school day?
Thank you, Councillor White. Can I invite Councillor John Ennis, the lead member for Climate Strategy Transport, to make a response on behalf of me?
Keeps coming on and off. There you go. Can you hear me? Thank you, Councillor White, for your reply. That's my reply. Thanks for the question. Should switch it off, shouldn't I? Issues of poor driver behaviour around school pupil drop-off and pick-up times have been a regular topic of discussion, and these will not be unique issues to Reading. It is important to consider that our schools sit within urban residential areas, and to be mindful that making changes to address these acute periods of the day could have greater impact to residents and other road users over time. The majority of the borough schools have some key areas covered by parking restrictions, including school keep clear markings near to entrances. These are nationally recognised restrictions that the council can enforce, but it is important to manage expectations. There are parking restrictions across the borough that are in place to minimise risks on the highway, the majority of which require attendance by foot patrol. So there will be resourcing limitations to the extent and frequency of visits to any single location. The majority of the borough schools sit within 20-mile-per-hour speed limit restrictions and have either a controlled pedestrian crossing or school crossing patroller nearby. These are measures that can reduce safety risks on the highway and encourage travel to school using sustainable modes, i.e. not by vehicle. Reading Borough Council was an early adopter of the school streets and has worked with a number of schools to make successful trials into permanent restrictions, as reported through this subcommittee. These provide a mechanism whereby the road outside a school can potentially be closed to traffic for the school drop-off and pick-up periods, while still enabling legitimate access egress for residents and businesses within schemes have been successfully introduced at Park Lane Primary and Junior School, Wilson Primary School, Thameside Primary School, and most recently on Crescent Road in East Reading. Officer engagement and discussion has been offered to all schools within the borough, and this will continue, with good information available on our website. Of the measures available to the council, uptake of school streets is still a strong recommendation where it is appropriate, as it should bring the greatest positive impact in terms of risk reduction and encouraging travel mode shift, whilst having less impact to those living within the immediate area, particularly with the restrictions not applying outside of school time, term time or weekends. Where issues or changing needs are identified, the council has programmes that can capture these. Requests for parking restriction changes can be included in the twice annual waiting restriction review programme that is reported to this subcommittee. Requests for traffic management measures, for example, speed calming and new controlled pedestrian crossing facilities, can be captured on the request for traffic management measures report that is updated at this subcommittee twice annually. While funding would need to be secured in order to deliver new pedestrian crossings and speed reduction schemes, the council continues to demonstrate its ability to do this. Recent examples include, but are not limited to, local SIL funding that has delivered new zebra crossings to benefit Moorlands Primary School and the Ridgeway Primary School, and an extension of the 20-mile-per-hour zone to cover the frontage of Reading Girls' School. Developer contributions secured through the planning process for the delivery of a new zebra crossing for the Heights Primary School. Successful bid for government active travel funding to develop and deliver a new zebra crossing near to St. Joseph's College. Report later in this evening's agenda. Ultimately, there are clear limitations to the council's enforcement powers, enforcement resourcing, and to the level of engineering solutions that can be applied to reduce risks on the highway. It is entirely the responsibility of any driver to behave lawfully and appropriately to the conditions around them for the safety of themselves, their passengers, and those around them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Councillor White, do you want our supplementary according to this?
No supplementary. Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you to Councillor Ennis for his answer.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is item 4, petitions. Petition for first one we have is speeding on Francis Street. Can I ask James to introduce that, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. So this is a report that's come here to receive a petition that's requested the council to tackle speeding that's being witnessed along Francis Street. I believe we have a speaker here to introduce the petition.
Thank you, James. Can I call Mr. Ian Fulbrook to the chair, please?
Good evening, councillors.
Good evening, sir. Could you state your name and
Yes.
who you are?
My name is Ian Fulbrook, and I'm a resident of Francis Street, and I've been asked to represent the petitioners from Francis Street at this meeting.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes starting from now.
Okay, thank you. As you're probably aware, Francis Street is one of our Victorian terrace streets, and obviously not built for motor vehicles. As residents, we're all aware of that, and our particular street has cars parked both sides and is a one-way street. We all accept, those of us who are car owners, that we're going to get scrapes and scratches from people when they're parking because it's so narrow. But the reason we are petitioning and that we started our campaign was that one of our residents had their car written off by a vehicle travelling the wrong way down the street. Unfortunately, it was also a council vehicle. And in due course, we started campaigning about the issue of vehicles travelling the wrong way down the street and crucially speeding. Francis Street is, as I say, very narrow, but it's also straight, and some careless drivers see that as an opportunity to put their foot down and go as fast as they can up the road. And obviously, as we all know, the faster you travel, the more chance there is in a car of things going wrong. As I say, one of our residents had their car written off. We did have some success in campaigning to have the council change their vehicles, their refuse vehicles, and they're now using a narrower vehicle when they come up Francis Street. So we've had some success with that, but we are still plagued by people driving the wrong way down the street sometimes, and people speeding up the street. And obviously, also with a one-way street, you don't expect to see cars coming down, and so that's a safety issue in general for not only the drivers but for the pedestrians. We've, as I say, we petitioned. We drew up a petition, and we went up and down both sides of the street, and we got the majority of the residents that we spoke to sign our petition. And in conversations with them, most of them agreed that some sort of safety measures would be most welcome. We didn't talk in specific detail about what they could be. Obviously, we leave that to your expertise, but we would be very grateful for some action to deal with this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fulbrook. Can I ask the committee to note the report of this petition and add it onto the next program? Councillor Ennis, sorry, I didn't see you indicate.
I'd like to respond. Agree. I mean, really appreciate you bringing the petition tonight. I mean, I know the street where I used to live just off Waldeck Street, and know Francis Street's because schools need, it's a difficult one, and that you're absolutely correct in what you're saying. I don't think there's any disagreement whatsoever with your position and the need for safety. What the executive summary is looking at is to, report requests for traffic management measurements for a 20-mile-per-hour scheme, and that we entries updated and reflect the receipt of this petition, which is done, and that for future funding allocation is to include it. There's a lot. I mean, I was talking to a colleague from Southcote. There's a lot of, proposals coming, so there's a lot of time and a need for money. But I think this needs to be reflected and to bring it forward for future funding allocation. And we need to discuss it. I know it's expected at the November committee. So we're asking to note the report and to agree the existing entry for requests for traffic management measures, updated to reflect it, and then for us to inform you of the decision, following publication. So if that's okay.
Thank you.
Totally understand the situation and need to put it into further works going forward. Can't put a timescale on it.
Sure.
To be honest, but I think it's important.
Thank
Is that
you.
okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
appreciated.
Mr. Brook. Thank you for coming in. We'll take this, put it further work. Committee agreement with that? Thank you. Thank you, sir. You can take your seat back. The next petition I have is improving safety in Kennethwell Avenue and Monks Way. Could I have the petitioner Soren?
Yeah, so my name is Soren Stirrup-Toft. I'm a resident at Kenilworth Avenue and also one of the trustee members of the Kenilworth, of the Southcote Park Estate Group as well. So there's so the petition is twofold. So one has already been adopted, which is the or has been proposed later in the meeting, but I'd still like to speak about this briefly about double yellow lines. Going around the eastern corner of Kenilworth Avenue, continuing eastbound along Southcote Lane. Essentially, if you can see in the packs, you can see the pictures. And essentially, this is just opposite the pub entrance, and there's often cars parked and vans parked on the corner coming out of Kenilworth, and it's extremely dangerous, not just for motorists coming out of Kenilworth Avenue in the morning, in the afternoons, where you have to actually go all the way out halfway into the road in order to have any visibility at all, which is extremely dangerous. For cyclists as well coming down, there is literally no visibility of the cyclists, and there's been several near misses. I note that the report says there hasn't been anything for 5 years. The police haven't seen any incidents. However, I think that's just a matter of luck rather than anything else. So we very much would like this to be adopted, and I think this would be very much in the interest of public safety. Because also, as the second petition, which is to have raised bumps along Kenilworth and Monk's Way, also affects school children as well. So the cars that have to, so in order to move along Kenilworth Avenue and onto Southcote Lane, if you have to park essentially or stop in the middle of the road or on top of the actual crossing, it also means that all the school children going to the Wren and to other schools in the area, it's really problematic for them as well, and also dangerous. So I think this would be very much. And then for the second petition, which is the raised table bumps across Kenilworth Avenue and on Monk's Way as well. So as the report notes, there were works done 5 years ago to the entrances all the way down. However, Kenilworth Avenue and Monk's Way were not adopted due to the incorrect statement that it was part of the private road. However, the first 3 meters of the entrances are actually council land, and therefore we believe that this should be adopted for the safety of all the citizens of Reading. And as a committee and as a resident association, we are also willing to, in order to get this done as soon as possible, we're also willing to give an additional metre or 2 of land should it be necessary. We believe 5 meters should be sufficient. I think 3 meters is council land, but we're willing to give up the 2 meters in order to have this scheme adopted, and also to be willing to pay parts of the cost as well of this should that move things forward. So we are, like, as a whole housing estate, we're very much committed to this for public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks Soren for his contribution and the good work that you do, as because it's my ward, and we've had some discussions. The work you do in the estate, it's outstanding, and I agree with the petition. We met ahead of time. We put forward and it'd be discussed and agreed tonight, hopefully. The double yellow lines, because we've had a look ourselves and believe it's so important to do so, because it's a busy road coming out, and if traffic is blocking onto a very busy main road in Southcote Lane, there's potential for problems, for accidents. Definitely note the second petition, because there are raised tables along Southcote Lane, which was done as a result of what we call seal money, due to the new improvements on the housing estate, and we should maybe consider going forward on them 2 roads, because they're as busy as the others. Therefore, again, we request that goes forward onto the programme to be discussed in November. Certainly with the consultation process, it's going to take a little bit of time, the double yellows, because there is a consultation process. and a couple of people who park there might not be too happy, but we'll deal with that when that happens, and that's what called is democracy. But putting that forward. So thank you for your time. Thank you for the petition, and we bring that forward for works going forward in the November. That's the proposal, isn't it? To note the report, and then the lists on page 27 if the subcommittee would look at that and agree it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Committee agreement with that? Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming in. You might stay for the rest of the meeting or go. Right. Next item we have is item 5, which I have an interest in. I would ask my colleague, the Vice Chair, Councillor Lorenzi, to come and take the chair for me for this item. For you. I'll take the phone. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Jacopo Lanzoni from Caversham, or Lenzi, as I was called by Chair Councillor Ayub. I like it, it's short. The next item is a petition update about private hire vehicle use of Kings Road bus lane, which is a report, not a petition, containing a petition update. So as we usually do for the report, we start with the officer giving us an overview. So I will pass it to Mr. Penman. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as you said, this is an update following the petition that was submitted to the subcommittee in September last year, and the subsequent update report in November last year, and is a follow-up to the refined request, which is for private hire, Reading Borough Council licence private hire access to the Kings Road outbound bus lane. So the report sets out the officer recommendation, which is against proceeding with the proposed change of access restriction. However, it also outlines the processes whereby that change could be facilitated and the steps to achieve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Penman. I understand that there are 2 members of the public which would like to talk about it. Just as a reminder, not that I don't know the standing orders by heart, but the standing orders allow up to 5 minutes in total to speak on any agenda item. So having 2 members, I would normally, as if I were normally here, I would give 2.5 minutes each. But considering the importance of this item, I would use my discretion and allow each of the 2 members of the public to talk for 5 minutes. I would invite Mr. Hopefully I will say it right, Kamran Sadiq to speak first, because I understand it's been the first member of the public signaling they would like to talk. You've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, respected members of the chambers. We have returned after 12 months following our application made in September 2022 for the outbound Kings Road bus lane. Since 2022, we have refined the request to only have the bus lane from Prudential Gasworks Road entrance. We believe that in the last 10 years that there has not been an accident on the Kings Road that involved a private hire vehicle. Also, we have been using the inbound bus lane for the last 10 years without any disruption. Furthermore, in the last 3 years, Reading Borough Council have been kind enough, very kind, to put signage up for authorised vehicles only for the inbound bus lane, which are Reading, Hackney and private hire. This change has made a significant difference to the traffic coming into Reading, as it has excluded other boroughs, i.e. South Oxfordshire District Council, Wokingham Borough, West Berkshire, and more or less now Fareham cars, who are also known as Uber drivers. We have had positive feedback from the school transport companies that the inbound bus lane makes a significant amount of difference when getting children who have special needs and disability requirements to their destinations when they're picked up in the afternoons from the centres. But vice versa, in the morning, they have major difficulties getting these children over to the centres because when they don't get there in time, they're stuck in traffic on the King's Road. The centres are then panicking, ringing up the parents, why are the children not here? The parents are very, very concerned, then ring up the transport company to find out what's going on. The transport company then try to get hold of the driver to find out what's going on. The response he gets back is, unfortunately, I'm stuck in traffic. There's a bus lane, I can't use it. I'm trying my best to get the children in the most safest and proper manner to the centres. If you would please update the parents and the centres as well. Also, we would like to request the same to be done on the outbound bus lane, so that Reading, Hackney Carriage and private hire would be the only ones to use this. This would reduce the volume using the bus lane, and this would take out other boroughs and leave only Reading. To be quite honest, we feel hard done by when we go to other boroughs and we are not able to use their bus lanes due to their jurisdictions that, you know, we are not allowed because we're not from their boroughs. So I don't see why it's fair that we are actually employed. We work for Reading Borough Council. We pay our licenses fees here, our badge applications fees for Reading, but we are being deprived from the services. We have, you know, been working tirelessly day and night to provide a great service to Reading. But it just feels really harsh that why these outer boroughs are allowed to come and use the bus lanes in Reading, and we actually from Reading are not allowed to use them. So this is why we were requesting, as the inbound bus lane has got the signage accessible vehicles only. It's been 3 years and the volume of traffic has decreased by a major amount. There's not been one single accident recorded from the private hire drivers in that bus lane. And also, you know, coming on the other side of how careful we're driving, especially where we've got, you know, children crossing the roads from the college. What we would like to request is we would like to take public safety as our priority, and if being maybe around the King's Road area, drop the speed limits to 20 miles an hour for the safety of the public, members of the public, and also mainly safety of the children who are crossing over, you know, from the roads as well. We also understand that putting this in hopefully would help reduce any, you know, further incidents to occur when drivers are driving more safely. We have proven that in the last 12 years when we were first given the inbound bus lane to use, and there's not been, like you said, one accident recorded by a private hire driver that has caused any problems on the inbound Kings Road bus lane. Same as in the last 3 years, again, when it was kindly granted by Reading Borough Council that it's accessible vehicles only, which included Reading private hire and Hackney carriages. In the last 12 months, the Reading Private Hire Association has been working tirelessly with Reading Borough Council. We've been working with transport, we've been working with licensing. We've had statements come back from licensing to say that since the form of the Private Hire Association, the reduction of the illegally trades applying for hire has reduced by a good 85 to 90%. We are trying our utmost best to work with everybody, but we just feel that we are harshly being treated by when we are doing everything as possible to help our trade, but we're not getting, unfortunately, the support from the authorities who are our governing body. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sadiq. I believe there is another person, Mr. Azif Rashid, who would like to speak.
Sure.
If you can exchange seats. Thank you very much. Same rules apply. 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. My name is Asif Rashid, Chair of the Reading Taxi Association. To an extent, yes, I agree with what Mr. Sadiq said, particularly with outer boroughs using bus lanes within Reading. But I have been saying this for many, many years, that we need to have a look at this. And I believe that we need to look not singly at bus lanes, but as a whole of every single bus lanes. And I'll give you an example why. You know, we have access to bus lanes, but there are also bus lanes that we can't use. For example, the prime one being the A33. You know, we've been asked for that for many years. And, you know, we've been advised that it's going to be part of the strategic review of bus lanes, which I believe is not going to take place for quite some time. In fact, my understanding is not going to take place until April 2025. We believe that's too far away and it needs to be done sooner. But as far as the bus lanes are concerned, even with Kings Road coming in, our issue is this. What enforcement will there be to prevent illegal use of the bus lanes? At the moment, the Kings Road bus lane coming in, there is a camera at Symmetry Junction where you enter it, but nothing further down. We, on a daily basis, see vehicles, whether it's private or out of town, Uber, South Oxfordshire, coming in and using that bus lane. We also see vehicles coming down the Kings Road, turning it right into Eldon Road and coming down at the bottom of Eldon Road and doing an illegal left turn onto the bus lane. So really, I think we also need to look at the enforcement aspect and how we can protect that bus lane for the primarily use, which is public hire. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rashid. Thank you. Councillor Ennis, I believe you would like to talk.
I'd like to make some points. Certainly start by welcoming the report. You know, over the period, I can remember, not as a lead, but certainly a member of the traffic management, this discussion taking place over the period. And I know there's been patience coming forward, but of course, the traffic management officers are extremely busy and it's a hectic schedule. But I'm really pleased it's come tonight. I certainly do want to thank both speakers speaking tonight, making some excellent points, outstanding points, to be truthful, in my view. I really do, you know, always the RTA, as if the good relations and the responsibility that the RTA have shown in Reading and discussions, and I think we should note your points. I want to reply to what you said later on, but certainly also want to thank the good work that the private hire association, Cameron and Paul, have brought to Reading over the past period. I think they've been extremely responsible. I think they've worked well. They've been at great pains to work with the council and licensing to ensure that, you know, the members that they represent understand the rules of Reading. And, you know, again, someone on licensing committee over a period of time can remember the problems that we've had. And it's really good to note the reductions in the figures, and licensing officers have verified that. And that really shows the work and the responsibility that you've done to your, you know, to the private representing your drivers. And that's why I think it's important that we heard you tonight. And it's important that we really have a serious reflection and thought and consideration of what's been said in the report. And I'd like to thank you for that. What I'm going to recommend is an informal consultation. An informal consultation, I've got the word in here, with users, interested parties, which will include, not totally alone, bus company, the RTA, the private hire association, cycle forums, disability groups, and individuals and members of the public to have a consultation to come back. Now, I would like it to come back in November, but I'm being advised that it would be difficult to get a proper consultation with some of the groups and for it to come back in November. So I would recommend that it comes back in January for consideration, to have a discussion and a proper consideration of what both the Private Hire Association and the RTA have said tonight. The question that I think we should get to the bottom of in Kings Road, which is a major issue, it's a major issue. I've stood there quite a few times. I give blood, plasma, and I stand outside when I've got a bit of time and watch people trying to cross the road. To be frank, watching people cross the road when the lights are green, and they should really be standing there waiting for the lights to go red, that's a real problem for, watching that. I saw that a couple of times, people trying to get across the road. Them cars are coming over at more than 20 miles per hour. What constitutes safety? And I think when we talk about safety in the report, I do not believe we should be singling out a section of the trade. We should not be singling out a section of who transports our people, our residents throughout Reading. And that's why proper consultation is needed to be done. Because what we're talking about as private hire, as what Cameron said, is responsible drivers that are transporting our children to school, many of whom have got special educational needs and disabilities, although many of the vehicles are, of course, are not. And the difference between the taxis and private hire notice is about accessibility and many of the vehicles. But also taking people to airports, all sorts. And what we're proposing is an informal consultation on a standalone access to the outgoing bus lane, not a general discussion, because many people are saying, so this is it, this is the start, we don't, we need to have more consideration. So what I believe we should do is to answer back what was started in September 22 is a consultation, an informal consultation on the standalone access of private hire, Reading private hire. I know legalities may be a problem, but Reading only private hire, because I totally understand and get that other drivers are able to use them and shouldn't be allowed, in my view. I'm a bit of a NIMBY on this, but there you go. I'm from Reading. It should be Reading only drivers using them bus lanes, and to have that informal consultation on that, but to raise what constitutes safety. What constitutes safety, Councillor, because I know you've raised questions about this and we had that discussion, is what is safety, particularly on that Kings Road? We've had accidents this week, and not just to concentrate on the private hire element of safety, because they've said tonight, and they've been very robust, and they've had discussions with me, is that there's been no accidents or no problems with the private hire. I think what constitutes safety in general, what constitutes what using the bus lane, because the private hire would use the lanes anyway, because they're heading that way, and it would be allowing them to use that bus lane. So it's standalone. And to answer the question, in my view, Asif, is we do need a proper discussion and consultation on who's got access to bus lanes. But that's a complex situation, because bus lanes are different in many parts of the town, as you have said. And I don't think we can put a timescale on that, James. I think that's a bit of a struggle, because we've got consultations coming with 6 bus lanes. We've got consultation with bus lanes. We've got money from the government, thank you very much, to have more bus lanes. I know they'll deny it and they'll probably vote against it, but it's nice to get the money from the government, because they were pro-bus at one stage. Always got to get a political point, and I do apologise. So I think we can't do that work straight away. I think it's going to take a bit of time, because it's got to be, because we're talking about cyclists using bus lanes. We're talking about motorbikes in some elements. So it's a complex issue. But for this one, I'm going to finish, Chair. I do apologise. Is that we're looking at an informal consultation, putting as an amendment, an informal consultation with users interested, and I've named some of them, to ensure that everybody gets a chance to come back in January 24. That's what I propose. I hope that's accepted by the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rennie. So just to be clear, I would like all colleagues to note that he's proposing basically a change in the recommendation of the report, with basically the statutory consultation to be replaced by the proposal for an informal consultation. Councillor White? Yeah. Councillor Page? I wanted to check whether you, Councillor Page, were ready.
Oh, I missed that,
Thank
sorry. Yeah, thank you, Chair. And what a lovely job you're doing there. So, yeah, I think private hire and black cabs and our buses, they're all part of the public transport system we've got in Reading for helping our residents get around. It's not sensible, as I've said before, that the private hire drivers can just use one of the bus lanes on King's Road and not the other. That doesn't really make sense to anyone, I don't think. And building on what other people have said, I think it doesn't make sense that out of borough drivers are allowed to use our bus lanes. I think I would agree that we should be using our bus lanes for the benefit of the Reading drivers, although I know that does get very complicated. Green councillors do support the private hire drivers using the King's Road outbound bus lane. We'll support the informal consultation. I think that's the way it's going, whatever I say, but I think that sounds like a reasonable way forward. But I also, as Mr. Sadiq was saying, think that road safety on King's Road needs to be properly looked at. At this point, I wanted to show a slide, but I believe that's at the discretion of the chair. So, Chair, can I show my slide showing accidents on King's Road?
Yeah, I will propose we have that conversation when the result from the informal consultation will come in, not at this point, if that's okay.
I would rather show it now, if that's okay.
I appreciate the compliment you made me 3 minutes ago. Now I understand why you paid me a compliment, but my answer is the same. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Chair. If I can describe the slide that I wanted to show, it's from a website called Crash Map. You can find it on Google. I think officers have shown Crash Map images before at meetings, if my memory serves me. And you can type in a Reading postcode, and then you can go along to look at King's Road, and you'll see that there are a lot of accidents along King's Road. Comparing it to nearby London Road, which is also a very busy road, I think I could see 3 accidents on London Road, and I could see a number that I couldn't even count on King's Road. It was 20 or 30, involving some very serious accidents, including deaths, tragically. So the point I was wanting to make, as is mentioned in the report, so I would say that I'm very much on topic, talking about road safety. The action is needed on road safety on King's Road, and as Mr. Sadiq said, something like a 20 miles an hour zone outside the college, like we have outside schools in the town, such as Alfred Sutton on the Wokingham Road, that is a useful measure to improve road safety. A number of the accidents on King's Road are pedestrians not looking as they're crossing on those pedestrian crossings, and if cars were travelling more slowly, then that would mean that people were more likely to walk away from those incidents rather than being ambulanced away, unfortunately. I also think that the council should be looking at the access of some of those little side roads, because a lot of the accidents on King's Road are people turning off of one of the main running lanes on Kings Road across a bus lane into a side road. The recommended action I would like to add, and I hope Councillor Ennis will support this one, as I was so kindly supported his recommended action, is that I think we should set up a councillor working group, as we've had on other issues, to look at road safety on Kings Road, to look at the data that the council has, to look at the options that there are, and see what can be done to improve road safety on Kings Road. So I'd like to propose a recommended action along those lines. But we will be supporting the other recommended actions. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Moore, do you want to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Unlike other councillors, I'll try and keep this short and concise. I'd like to thank the speakers this evening for explaining their thoughts on the situation and the extra sort of colour they've given to the topic at hand. I said this time last year. I still think it is odd, and I do not, and we didn't have an answer to this last year, that inbound traffic has one set of rules and outbound traffic has another set of rules, which I think is very bizarre. However, I absolutely I agree with Councillor Ennis's suggestion for an informal consultation. I also agree November is probably too soon in order to get all the stakeholder groups involved in such a consultation, and I agree with the list that he laid out as well, as the people be informed. I don't have a view on Councillor White's recommendation for Council Working Group, as I probably have no skin in the game for Kings Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Goss.
Thank you, Chairman. And I too like to thank the members of the public who are speaking this evening for providing such useful insight into the issues. It's been very helpful and useful. I'd like to also thank Councillor Ennis for acknowledging the £26 million that the government has given to Reading to improve bus services. And I'd like to also point out that there are some of us who are still pro-bus as well. But on the issue of Kings Road specifically, it does just make sense that there should be consistency in terms of the traffic rules on the Kings Road. And I entirely agree as well that Reading drivers should have exclusive access if we are going to permit these drivers to use the bus lanes. On the issue of safety, I used to live on the Kings Road, and as a cyclist, I think the cycle infrastructure on the Kings Road also needs to be considered, because despite the arrangement that currently exists, you do tend to get a lot of cyclists cutting across the carriageway to try and get on to the cycling along the Kennet, which just causes problems and is very dangerous. So the cycling infrastructure should be an aspect of the safety considerations whenever we look at the Kings Road. And so I too support the informal consultation as proposed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goss. I've got Councillor Page and then Councillor Singh.
And thank you, Chair. You're doing a splendid job, if you don't mind me saying. Can I just remind colleagues that the issue of private hire or hackney carriage use of bus lanes has to be balanced against the primary function, and that is to maintain a reliable public transport service and infrastructure. And as the lead member that's been responsible for introducing more bus lanes in Reading than anybody else, I can assure you that the benefit of those bus lanes is substantial, and is one of the reasons we have one of the premier bus companies in the country, because of the extent of bus lanes in supporting reliability and also the usage, therefore, of the bus services. And bus lanes obviously have to be considered in terms of their impact on the wider traffic flows as well. And the question of consistency has just been raised by Councillor Goss, and there was a lot of agonising years ago when we decided to allow the then experiment for the inbound bus lane. And one of the reasons that I went along with it and why I am sympathetic to the case that's been made by the private hire drivers is because of the length of the road and the proven fact that the impact of private hire vehicles on the inbound bus lane has not adversely affected the operations of buses. And certainly the bus company would be the first to draw to our attention. And so one of the purposes of an informal consultation that I wholeheartedly support is to try and elucidate some facts which we could all usefully have in front of us before we move to any further stage, possibly to have a statutory consultation to allow Hackney a private hire into the outbound lane. We also need to get the views of existing users of the bus lane, which is also the Hackney carriage, cyclists, and we also need to consult with disability groups and other users. And that will then enable us to have something which we've never had before, and that is hopefully a more informed debate about the wisdom of opening up the outbound bus lane to private hire. Private hire vehicles currently use the other two lanes. So we're talking about switching the ability of private hire to use that bus lane and obviously speed them, not speeding, but to enhance the journey time for them. I don't blame Councillor White for trying to introduce road safety, but it is frankly not a relevant factor as to whether or not private hire vehicles should be allowed to use the bus lane. There are safety issues, but if he wants to try and complicate and further delay this matter, we would be sidetracked by accepting his proposal. Road safety on King's Road has been looked at exhaustively. He's been briefed exhaustively about this, but his usual tactics and campaigning tactics are being displayed again this evening. So I would urge my colleagues, if they want to discuss further road safety initiatives, that should be done under a separate heading and not to complicate or confuse the issue before us. The final point I would make is about enforcement of restrictions, and Asif Rashid rightly raised a very fundamental point. Our bus lanes operate effectively because people who stray into them or deliberately abuse them will receive a ticket. And the cameras work extensively well where they are in position. But Mr. Rashid rightly raises the point about the possible need for additional cameras on the inbound lane. And clearly, we would be looking for camera enforcement of the full length of the outbound bus lane. It is enforced, and the introduction of private hire vehicles into that bus lane is not a problem administratively. Errors, I understand, have been made recently, and hopefully those will be addressed by officers. But we can and will enforce those bus lanes. And clearly the issue of giving preference to Reading registered private hire is one we all agree. But the reason we have the current mess of 1830s legislation basically determining the distinction between private hire and Hackney carriage is because this government has run away from sorting out the antiquated licensing that surrounds private hire and Hackney carriage. And we are the victim of that, as well as our local authorities. We have to do our best to work our way around it. So, Chair, I would strongly support the amendment that Councillor Ennis has proposed, and I would certainly not support Councillor White's amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Page. I've got Councillor Singh. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for speaking on this matter. It defeats common sense that as a resident in Reading, you get a license, but you're not allowed to use the bus lanes, but someone outside from other council can come and use it. So it doesn't make sense at all. So that needs to be rectified. Bus lanes, as we know, has been substantial. Also, not only improving the transport, public transport, but also £4 million in fines for residents and others. So there is some funding from those fines and everything, which can be used. I do support the informal consultation, but one thing I disagree is on the time scale. I think it should be time scaled, and it could be an opportunity to look at the bus lane and provide those opportunities. And when it comes to the review of other strategic review of the bus lanes, we can see this as a pilot case and make a robust decision for the wider discussion. So it should be time scale. And when you put Reading only car hires, then it might add further confusion. So it has to be more clear, I believe, whether they are allowed to use the bus lanes or not. If you make it Reading only, then it adds more confusion to the matter and unnecessary pain to the taxi drivers. So I definitely support informal consultation, but it needs to be time scaled, and it needs to be moved quickly rather than kicking it in the long grass. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. I believe, just for clarification, there is a time scale, which is January. Am I correct? Yeah. Councillor White, you wanted to come back.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, Councillor Page. I wasn't proposing to mix up the councillor working group looking at road safety on Kings Road and private hire use of the bus lanes. I was wanting them both to run independently. So yeah, it wouldn't slow anything down, but apologies if I confused you.
Thank you, Councillor White. I don't have anyone else who would like to speak. So if that's the case, I would like to ask you whether we all agree with the revised version of the recommendation in the report, which basically replaced the statutory consultation with an informal consultation. Is not, no, I'm afraid. You didn't even have a seconder. Okay. So do we want, so we start from the amendment to the amendment. Do we agree with the addition from Councillor White? Who is in agreement? Who abstains? Who is against? I think it, yeah, it's not passed. Then we vote on the amendment moved by Councillor Ennis and seconded by Councillor Barnett-Ward, I think, which is what I was mentioning earlier. Are we all in agreement? Fantastic. Thank you. It's been very nice. I think I need to move from this chair. Bye.
Right. Thank you. We'll continue with the next item. Thank you, Chair, for doing that. Item 6 is proposal for pedestrian crossing on Upper Redlands Road. Can I ask Mr. Penman to introduce that, please? Yeah.
Thank you. So a good news story off the back of discussion around the bus service improvement plan funding. My colleagues in the transport sector managed to secure some funding through a active travel 4 bid to proceed with development for a rather long-standing request for a new zebra crossing on Upper Redlands Road. So the report seeks agreement from the subcommittee members to proceed to statutory consultation and to move that scheme forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Will Cross.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just take the opportunity to welcome this proposal and to highlight the success of the previous Labour lead member for bidding for this and the Labour Council for its ambitious strategy on active travel, cycling and walking. I think it's obviously disappointing that the somewhat opaque and capricious central government funding process did not provide funding for the additional schemes that we bid for, in which case it would have been even better. But it's testament to the Labour Council's bold agenda that this scheme is coming forward in partnership with the school. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you. So yeah, I would like to commend the council as well for going forward with this after quite some time, and I'd just like to thank the community for supporting it for such a long time. I think the parents of children at the school have been pushing for this for about 6 years, so good on them for sticking with it. And yeah, thanks to those people that contributed to actually help to fund it, and as well as the officers for getting the funding that they have to make it happen. So good news.
Thank you. I don't see any more indication for speaking. So can we agree to the committee now? Thank you. Okay, James. Right. The next item we have the waiting restriction review program. Mr. Penman.
Thank you, Chair. So this report covers 2 different waiting restriction review programmes. So the first is the 2023A programme. So it follows a report to the last committee meeting in June, and we've undertaken statutory consultation on those schemes that were recommended or as amended by the minutes. So those schemes that have received feedback, be that support, objections or a combination of, are being brought back tonight for a decision on whether they get implemented or not. And part B is for the start of the new programme, the 2023B, and this brings the requests that we've received since the last one, and a decision is required for each on whether they proceed to officer investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Penman. Right. We'll move on to the first item. As you know, I take this ward by ward. So the first one I have is in Church. This is request for double yellow lines around the Crescent Road area. And I would ask Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Councillor Ayub. Northumberland Avenue. I know that it's got somebody who's objected and somebody who's neither supported nor objected as a response. This actually came from a resident who lives exactly where those yellow lines would go in, and I support it. And I think it should remain in the programme simply because officers have assessed this and they see that there are problems at that end of Northumberland Avenue. That, you know, that the road is restricted. There's buses coming out of a bus what's it called, a bus bay or whatever, down to the roundabout, and it's a very complex situation. So I think the measured approach, which was to put double yellow lines on one side, is an appropriate solution, and I would like to see it going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Committee agreement with that? Yeah, everybody? Okay, and the next one I have is in Coley, which is Carsdale Close.
Thank you, Chair. Neither residents or ward councillors are in favour of this scheme going forward.
So you would like to withdraw this one? Is that
yes,
right?
please. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Everybody agree with that? So, Coley Avenue, Councillor.
On this one, we would like this to proceed.
Yeah.
Please. Thank you.
In support with that one. Thank you. The next item I have is in Emma Green, Almond Drive. We have 4 support and 4 objection. This is request for double yellow lines. Emma Green, Councillor.
Yes, on the basis of the proposals, of no objections.
Sorry, I didn't quite get you. Support for that. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Also, is this the next one I have is in Emma Green as well, Oldham Avenue, which double yellow lines due to the parking around junction. Up 8 objections in this one. Councillor, did you?
Get the phrasing right, I support this as well.
Yeah. It's in support for that. And the next item is as well in Emma Green, Henley Road. A request for double yellow lines due to cars blocking the pavements. In support with that, Councillor? Yeah.
Yes, very much so. I've had complaints from residents in the ward about the cars parking on the cycle lanes and the footpath there, so very much in favour.
Thank you. Next item I have is in Catesgrove Ward, which is Essex Street. Request for additional restriction around the junction of Whitley Street. No support for that one? Yeah, thank you. And also Catesgrove and Church, this is Northumberland Avenue. Support for that one, Councillor Smith?
Chair, we've already discussed that one under the church bit of the agenda.
Thank you. Next item I have is Kentwood Ward, which is Pottery Road. Request for a double yellow line. Councillor Keeping.
Yeah, we support that one being implemented.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, Councillor Singh, I didn't.
Yeah, I agree. I support that.
Thank you, Councillor. Right. Right, okay. Norcote Ward, Hamsdale Close. This was originally 7 objections there. Councillor Lorenzi.
Thank you, Chair. I got in touch with my colleagues of Norcote Ward, and they wonder whether officers were available to consider the suggestion from at least one local resident for a 5-meter length line on the corners, please to be assessed. If the safety, what colleagues are really interested in is whether the safety is retained. So what they suggested was if the safety objectives can be met with shorter lines, then they would like to suggest us to for the proposal to be amended, while if the safety objective are compromised by shorter double yellow lines, and they would like to suggest us again to keep the original proposal.
Mr. Penman, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is the second time that this has come back following consultation. I do understand the request for 5 meters. I mean, however, to really achieve the visibility space through the junction and for pedestrians crossing as well as for vehicles that are manoeuvring around there, I'd say there's a reason why the Highway Code recommends the 10 meters. So it would always be the officer recommendation for the 10 meters over 5, and particularly with an area with the extent of on-street parking that this does. So the officer recommendation would be 10 meters, but I suppose speaking candidly, I think we'd prefer to have something rather than nothing, but we would prefer that is the 10 meters.
Right. Thank you. Councillor, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, then I suggest trying to interpret the advice of colleagues that we accepted as recommended by officers.
Committee agree with that? Yeah? Okay, fine, thank you. Thank you, we take that forward. Northcote, again, this is, I had support for that. Shillingford Close request for double yellow lines along the highway. As committee agreed, I had support for this one. Anybody else? Yep, we take that forward, please. And next item I have is in Whitley, Ashby Court, request to extend the double yellow lines. Councillor Lorenzo, support for that one? Thank you. Whitley again, Foxhays Road, support for that one I've received from chairs. The committee agreed to that? Yeah, thank you. And also again, Whitley, St Angus Way, support for that one. I received from the ward. Committee agreement with that? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, subcommittee. We move on to Appendix 2, Waiting Restriction Program for 2023A. And this again, we normally take it by ward. We have 3 in Abbey, Great Norley Street, Station Road, and Welder Street on the both side of Councillor Page.
Support all of those, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. The next item is in Battle Ward 2, Loverock Road, location vicinity request for double yellow line and Waverley Road. Councillor Hackett.
Councillor Griffith.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Councillor.
support for both of those, please.
Agreement, Councillor?
I just want to clarify that I support Loverock Road and I support the officer comment on Waverley Road.
Okay. Thank you, James. You go. The next item is in Caversham. We have 3, Hamden Road, Star Road, and Westwood Road.
Chair, I would like to accept number 2 and number 3, but I would like the proposal for Hamden Road to be dropped. I would like also to make a comment about the reason, which is we actually received an invitation from residents to do it, and we did our own informal consultation, but it turned out that the vast majority of the other residents were not in agreement with double yellow line. So we saved you time.
Thank you, Councillor. So we're Mr. Penman, we're dropping the Hamden Road one, withdrawing it, and the other two is for support. Committee's agreement. Next item I have is in Church, also 3 in Church, Northumberland Avenue.
Chair, happy for those to go forward.
Happy to go those forward, thank you. And next 3 items you have is in Coley Park, Barclay Avenue, Penny Road Court, Shore Road. Councillor Gating.
Yeah, happy for those to go forward further.
Okay, thank you. And the next item we have is in Emma Green, Henley Road and Jefferson Close. This is between junction of Hollow Road and Mickland Road. Councillor?
Yes, as mentioned, I've had complaints, so happy for that to proceed.
Happy to support this, yeah, thank you. Next item we have is in Catesgrove. We have 4, Arkwright Road, Bolton Road, Edgehill Street and Kendrick Road, Northumberland. Are we in support with that one, Councillor Smith? This,
Sorry, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Chair. Just on item 3, which is also in Redlands, I oppose progressing with this because the parking bays form part of the broader speed calming measures on that road, so I don't think that should be progressed any further.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, through you, Chair, which was number 3, Councillor Cross?
Catesgrove 3 is Kendrick Road between Allcroft Road and Christchurch Road, removing parking bays.
Mr. Penn, yeah, you got those. Sorry, Councillor White, you?
The Catesgrove Green councillors would like to see that progressed, as would our Redlands councillors. So would you consider, Councillor Cross, it being progressed up to design, and then once we've got a design, we've got something to have a discussion about? It will come back to the committee before it goes out to consultation. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Cross.
Is that okay, Jim? Yeah. Thank you. Next item we have is 2 in Kentwood Ward, Newbury Close and Pottery Road. Okay, support for number 1 and withdrawal for number 2. Thank you.
Yeah, same. Support for 1, withdraw number 2.
Thank you, Councillor Singh, as well. Right, next item is 2 in Norcourt Ward, Roe Court and Waverley Road. I did receive a support for those 2. Anybody? Objection? Anything? No? Okay, agreement with that, support those 2. Next 3 items I have is in Park, Eastern Avenue. This is a location Addington Road, Wokingham Road, and also in Park, Eastern Avenue 2, which southern side of the section. 3. And Liverpool Road. Councillor White? Oh, sorry, Councillor Cross.
I think Councillor Cross had his hand up first, but yeah, I'm sure I'll say something.
Well, 2 are in Redlands.
Okay.
On number 1, Eastern Avenue number 1, I oppose the proposals but agree with the officer comments about next steps. And for number 2, Eastern Avenue number 2, I'm happy for that to progress.
White?
Yeah, happy with the park schemes, and yeah, happy with Councillor Cross's comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cross.
Right. It's Councillor Cross, yeah.
I support items 1 and 2, and the remainder we've already covered under other items.
Thank you. Agreement with that? Yeah, thank you. Next ward is Southcote Lane. We have one, councillor Ennis.
Yeah, as discussed tonight by the
Yeah,
petitioner, yeah,
support.
want that to go forward.
Yeah, support for that one. Next ward is Thames Ward, Addison Road and Meadow Road. 2.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, thank you. Fine for those to go forward.
Thank you. Support for those 2. And the next ward is Tireless. We have 6 in Tireless: Blunders Road, Green Acres, Fern Glen and Hardwick, 7 Close and Meadway. I did receive support from there, but I'm just looking around. Councillor.
Yep, that's me. Thank you. Tilehurst Ward Council support these all in principle. We'd like to see more information as it comes forward so we can see, because obviously some of them haven't got a lot of detail. But yeah, in theory, yeah, we support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Yes. Thank you. That concludes that part of the agenda. We move on to item 8, which is the Jackson Corner result of statutory consultation. Mr. Penman, could you introduce?
Thank you, Chair. So again, this report follows the report to June's subcommittee, which outlined the developer funding that we'd received to deliver a very specific scheme of changes around the Jackson's Corner. And we've undertaken statutory consultation, of which the results are in the report, and we're seeking agreement to implement the scheme as advertised, which would be the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Ennis, you.
Yeah, support the recommendation. See, it's a good project going forward, and I'd like to see it as quick as possible in, because it's been a long discussion over this, hasn't it? So very much support.
Thank you. The committee agreement with that? Thank you. Next we have is item 9. This is digital parking permits. Okay, can I, Mr. James Crosby, speak on this one, please?
Thank you, Chair. This paper sets out a proposal.
Forget.
Apologies for that. Thank you, Chair. This proposal sets out to introduce a digital permits system borough-wide for all permit types, with the exception of visitor permits, which will remain as physical permits. Whilst the default position is that residents will benefit from digital permits, there will remain the option for offline physical permits for vulnerable or non-digital residents. In addition to the pilot which was carried out in Zone 02R, officers had discussions with other local authorities about their experience of implementing digital permits. The main benefit of introducing the new system is the speed at which new permits can be issued, renewed or varied, meaning that instant cover is in place once the application or renewal process is complete. During the pilot of the digital permit scheme, whilst there was a relatively low response rate to providing feedback on the scheme, it was clearly recognised that visitor permits was an issue that caused the greatest concern for residents. In particular, the flexibility and ease of use of the existing scratchbooks was highlighted. Recognising this, and as part of the implementation of new software for permits, the rollout of digital permits has been held. This will allow for further improvement and configuration of the new software ahead of a proposed rollout in Zone 02R, which would continue to operate full digital permits. It is hoped that the new system will show improvements against issues that some residents experienced with the previous product in that trial. If subject to those measurable improvements to the new system and positive feedback from residents, the new digital visitors permit system could be rolled out across the borough within the next 12 months, subject to a further report to this committee. Another area of concern raised by residents, which is indicated in the report, was how digital permits might be enforced. And the council already operates an online form which can be completed to report those concerns that vehicles that residents are unfamiliar with and therefore potentially parking without a permit. This system will remain in place and allows for a civil enforcement officer to be tasked with visiting the area and taking enforcement action as necessary. The full details of benefits and mitigations are set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Ennis.
Yeah, no, thanks ever so much. I think this is worth a discussion in itself. I had the pleasure of doing Radio Berkshire interview in the early hours, 7 o'clock, on Monday morning with the Andrew Peach, and the normal Andrew said, "Isn't it about time this got done?" Absolutely correct. And it is about time we considered digital permits, as some people would say, residents coming to the 21st century. I think it's primarily for the ease of residents. I mean, it may present a cost saving exercise, which would be excellent, but really ultimately it's about making it easier for residents to get parking permits. And the discussions that have been, I know there's been lengthy discussions about this, and the issue about many of our residents who can't get access, either can't get access, who are not IT literate to a certain extent, and I'll count myself as one of them sometimes, that we're still holding on to the paper version for a period. So those, you know, that diversity issue is actually considered, and it's you know, the scratch card paper visits permits will continue to be in use. And then there'll be a trial to make visitor parking digital in that period as well. So we are taking into consideration those who are not IT friendly, and there's a lot of us out. There's a lot of people out there in the community who struggle with IT, but by and large, moving forward to the digital is the way forward. And I welcome very much James's report and James' contribution, particularly the issue about enforcement, because I've been approached by some residents, oddly enough in Park Ward, who want to know how they can enforce, because residents do like to keep a watching brief and monitor what vehicles are being parked on their streets, and I think that's fine. And there was a question about that, and it's good to hear that that can still take place, and that the civil enforcement officers who are linked in via IT can actually detect who has got a permit and who hasn't. So very much support this. It's been a long time coming. Obviously, there could be issues, there could be niggles. It's a new system, and we need to monitor that very carefully to ensure that residents get a good service, a seamless service going forward. Thank you.
Councillor Ennis. Councillor Barnett Ward.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this has been coming for a while. I was a member of a councillors' working group on this, and it was one that was set up through the proper process, not by a random suggestion on an unrelated report, which is why it actually happened. And Chair, I would remind anyone who wants to make mischief about votes that if you actually want to get things done for your residents, you go through the proper process and don't make random suggestions on unrelated reports. So I was in a councillor working group on digital permits long enough ago that Tony Jones was on it with me. So that dates how long we've been looking at this. And one of the big advantages that we saw, sorry, Chair, there's a lot of conversation the other side of the room. Thank you. Thank you. No, it's all right. I don't want to hear from you though, because it's my time. So if you wouldn't mind, just thank you. Yeah, it's quite rude. So it was one of the things that you're still talking. One of the things that we thought was a big advantage of visitor permits was increased flexibility. And one of the complaints that we had, digital visitor permits from residents, was about the scratch cards, and they felt they were inflexible. So I was disappointed and concerned when I read the feedback from residents in the trial area who found actually that the digital visitor parking permits were less useful for them because of wanting to be able to have people who've got keys to their house come in, pick up a permit and use them, park correctly without having to contact the homeowner. And this is why we do trials and consultations, because that was something that we hadn't anticipated. And I think it's right that officers are suggesting that therefore, as a result of this, that we will roll out the digital resident permit, which has gone smoothly for pretty much everyone, with that exception that people who can't engage with the digital process can still go through an analogue process. But I think it's right that we're not rolling out the full visitor digital permit across the borough just yet. But I would like to make a request to officers that we can please let the people who were the canaries down the coal mine of this, who raised these issues in this feedback, give the people in the trial area the option to revert to paper if they wish. I'm assuming that there's a happy majority within the trial area who, for the digital visitor permits, have worked in the way that we hope they would, and they've been more flexible and they prefer them. So I'm not suggesting we roll it back, but if I'm hoping that officers would be able to, maybe we can write to the people in the trial area with some feedback and give them that option of saying, actually, no, while we are still offering visitor paper permits, if they can have those permits. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Taking those notes. Councillor Hecker, I have next one.
Thank you, Chair. I read this report with interest because I too was in the very long ago, the initial look at the digital parking permits with Councillor Tony Jones. And at that point, it was obviously decided it's not something that we could do. A few years ahead, technology is much more easier to use, and I do support the recommendations. I do have a few queries, however, because I know the area where I represent pretty well. So in regards to the login process, and it did say that it would be made available for houses of multiple occupancy, would it just be one login per, for example, for my family, would I set up the login, then have to give those details to my husband and my children? In regards to visitor permits, again, for example, my son is soon to be 16 years old. He will be in the house by himself. Somebody might come along. They might need a visitor permit. Presumably, I'd have to teach him how to, when we get to the digital process, how to log in and sort out that for them. So that's two questions. In regard to the consultation, I'd be interested to know if we're going to have any links to the consultation in other languages, because I represent a very diverse area where English may not be read. And it would be a shame if those communities weren't able to access this consultation, because their views are very important. Another one is when it comes to the consultation, presumably we'll have some way of recording where the person lives and which permit zone potentially they're in. So if we have particular areas that are really against this, is it a case that the digital permits will happen across the borough if the majority go for it, or would we still be able to revert to the paper version? My particular concern, and Councillor Griffiths will know, we have one area of residents who are deeply unhappy with their residents' parking scheme. It's a very complex issue. We're working hard to resolve it. My prediction would be from that particular area, they won't like this because they'll not be able to go along the street looking in people's windows and seeing which cars are supposed to be there and which will not. It's great that we can still report cars that we're unsure about, but I'm pretty certain initially we're going to get a huge wave of people, well, I've not seen this car, it's not got a permit in the window and I don't know, whacking through loads and loads of reports till it settles down a bit. And also, as part of the consultation, will people be able to see the website and the process? Because there's a lot of fear in the unknown. And when you can go through the process, even if it's a dummy process, or have a good look at the different pages and see what's involved to do this, I think it will alleviate a lot of concerns. So my main questions are, what will happen around shared family logins? Will it be all or nothing when it comes to particular areas? And can we have access to all different languages plus the walkthrough? Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. In response to Councillor Barnett-Ward's query about the process for, do you know what, I'm having a very long day. Apologies, Councillor Barnett-Ward. I'll tell you what, I'll deal with Councillor Hacker's first, so that at least that's fresh in my memory. I do apologise. So, Councillor Hacker, so in terms of the logins, I'm going to defer to Elizabeth Robson in a moment because she'll have the details. She's working with the new software supplier to work that through, because that was something that we've acknowledged as part of the consultation, but equally we've looked at it in terms of, you know, the flexibility that's required for different households. That's something we recognise we need to address. In terms of the pilot or the trial, so there's no trial of the residents permits. It's only for the digital visitors permits. And we're only anticipating running that trial in Zone O2R, which is effectively a continuation of the trial that we've already had in place. We're working with the supplier specifically on that kind of run through. So we're trying to work with them to generate a video kind of run through so that people can actually see, and again, non-language, so not having to listen to the audio, but seeing the process visually, to try and to help them understand how that's going to work, because we recognise again that for not everybody's going to be that familiar with it's a new process, it's a new system, and we're asking them to do something that they haven't done before. So we want to absolutely give them the best possible guidance we can, and as I say, we're looking at the options to do that. And I think certainly for those who can log in and view the platform and see how it works and how they have to go through the process, that will be a really good step for them. Similarly, as we go through the trial, we know that the visitors permits, the beauty of the scratch card is the instantaneous nature of it. It's, grab it from the drawer, scratch it, put it in the car. What we need to work through as part of the trial is how we can generate that level of flexibility in the system. We think it is doable, so for example, it's a kind of login and it's there as almost like an app on your phone. It's not an app, but you can run it like that through the website, and that will allow you to kind of quite quickly do those things. But we can come back to you on the question around the sort of HMO shared use type logins. I know it's something that we're kind of working through the detail with the supplier just at the moment. Councillor Barnett-Ward.
It was. Can we please, while we're still offering paper visitor permits across the rest of the borough, give people who were in the trial area the option to roll back to that system if that worked better for them?
Absolutely, and apologise again. So yes, there is an opt-out process. So again, the principle behind this is that we're not looking for everybody to immediately adopt this if there are reasons why they can't. So as we currently have in Zone O2R, that opt-out, if there are concerns about how that's running for them, both in terms of the digital permit and the visitors permits, there will be an opt-out option. And again, we would want to capture the feedback as to why that's not working for them. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Sorry, just to note down, was the feedback that we've got this report, was that anonymous? Or do you know who gave that feedback? Because I'm thinking specifically about those people who raised those situations. I want to make sure that those people know they can have paper visitor permits, and whether that's writing to everyone in the trial area and flagging that, or if you're able to go specifically to those people, but can you take it away to make sure that those people who really struggled will know that they can go back to paper?
Absolutely. I mean, so I'll check in with the team, but I certainly seem to recall on the phone conversations that were had, we have those details, but whether we have on the full consultation, we can check. Equally, I think if we don't, I think we just need to be clear when we roll that out, what the process is and where people need to go to access that support.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter. I have the next Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Although Tilehurst does not have any parking permit zones, I have some thoughts on this. So first of all, I'm really pleased to see this as a very good example of where a pilot takes place and lessons are learned from that, and the final thing is a lot better solution put to us. I think that's brilliant. Especially pleased to see the digital divide sort of addressed in this. Concern I had at the beginning was about offline sort of physical permits, but it's really, really good that people can still apply for those for people who obviously are not able to have a digital permit. So that's brilliant. It would be good in the future to have both digital and physical visitor permits, like in the same sort of way that we're doing the standard permits. But I understand from the report why we can't do that right now, but I'm glad that's covered as well. So that'd be good to see in the future. I do share Councillor Hacker's concern about people not knowing if a car has a permit or not, although I realise that's not a easy thing to solve, and ultimately it is still at the responsibility of parking services to, and traffic wardens to deal with that kind of thing anyway, not residents themselves, but residents will still report those things to us as councillors regardless, right? One idea I did have for the future is we're talking about guiding people through this. Could in our new shiny civic offices reception, could this be potentially a guided service where people can actually be guided into how to apply for a digital permit in the new civic offices reception? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. And again, coming back to Councillor Hacker's point about enforcement. So the interest or the benefits of the new contracts that we have engaged, both in terms of software and enforcement, are that digital permits will now be fully available on handheld. So the civil enforcement officers, when they're going around those areas, will be absolutely able to check every single registration if needs be. Again, if they're basically tasked to go out there and look at them, they will be able to make that assessment. But similarly, and again, working on the detail around this, we're looking at the software integration, which would allow the ANPR vehicles that we have, which go around the streets, to be able to basically go around and check the plates for those areas, which would, the benefit being volume, but also if we're doing it on a regular basis, we then start to understand the areas where it is being taken advantage of, if it is at all. So, and that's high visibility as well. So I think from residents' perspective, we're looking to enhance that service rather than take anything away from them. So I think there's some benefits to be achieved through that part of the contract.
Thank you. Next speaker, Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Could I get a bit more detail on how the finances of this scheme work? I'm assuming it's a massive saving for the council, but it doesn't go into too much detail in the section at the end of the report. So yeah, how do the finances work over the medium term?
Thank you, Councillor White. So there isn't a huge saving associated with it. This is really about postage and it's a printing and postage of the older type permits. So, we're looking at off the top of my head, I seem to recall it's around £20,000. It's not a lot of money, and anything that we do generate in terms of savings in this particular case would be reinvested back into delivering a better service.
Next, Councillor Andrew Smith.
Thank you, thank you, Chair. Okay, I think generally speaking, everybody's welcoming the idea that we're progressing towards a digital sort of rollout of this. It will make savings, it will be faster, more efficient, etc., etc. My question is really, is it possible to opt into the digital, but opt out of the visitor's permit being, being a digital? So if you opt in, can you partially opt in, if you like? That was one question. And the reason I say that is because I actually think that the objections set out, numbers 4, 5 and 8 in particular, really strike home, and they're substantive issues. So in 4 it says, I used to be able to leave a book out for the carer, and now the RBC system means I have to log them in. 5 says, the argument that scratch cards are time consuming is not valid. It's easier to scratch off the date, write a number plate compared to logging in. And 8 is, this one. Now they have to call, this is, when I have in-laws coming round, I used to be able to give them a few vouchers to use. Now they have to call asking me to do the permit. Now, I appreciate that we're going to try and resolve those issues, but I think those are really quite substantive arguments against, a fully digitized visitor scheme. If it can be done, if it can be achieved, great. But I still think that those are quite substantive arguments against the full rollout of a visitor, fully digitized, no options visitor scheme. So I appreciate this report is going halfway, and it's looking at the feedback actively, and the officers have responded accordingly. I appreciate that. I think the next stage, if we're saying, well, we're going to trial it, etc., for the visitors, then we need to be very, very careful to make sure that the end solution for the visitors permit is one that has everybody's support. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Cosby.
Thank you, Councillor Hornsby-Smith. So yes, I mean, in reality, we're going out to pilot. We look at those things. It is a new software product, so it's not the same one as we had from the original trial. There is improvements to it, which is why, you know, we've procured it in the first place. You know, we'll be looking to address those issues that have been specifically raised by residents. If we can't address them, you know, that's where, you know, we're due to come back here to, you know, post pilot of that area before we decide to roll visitors permits out further. But I think we would look to be trying to address all of those matters. Again, as set out in the report, there is that opt-out. So, you know, as I say, the opt-out is more about those who, you know, can demonstrate vulnerability, etc., as we have with our current systems. They need additional support to complete the things. But if we find that that's not required, or, you know, we'll address that at that point. But the point is we're going to take that trial into Zone O2R if it's agreed this evening, come back to you with the further updates against that trial, and then seek that approval before we go out to a fully digital system across the borough.
Right, Councillor Singh, you indicated as well.
Thank you, Chair. My question was around 3.13, which is software. So it's a good segue for me to ask. So you mentioned this, there's no cost savings there, right? And usually when there's a new software provided by a company, they provide at a discounted rate. Once they get in, then they are at, you know, we are at their mercy. They can come and say the price is going up 25% or whatever. So is there any safeguarding there with that kind of, so there's no cost increase which passed on to the residents? That's the one thing. Second thing is on the outages. Software systems do have outages sometimes, you know, a number of things. How that communication is managed with the residents who's trying to go and book and this system is not working and things, you know. So that's the second thing I'd like to raise. And third thing is around 3.28, when the residents goes and buys the blocks. How long those blocks remain valid? Do they expire after a year, or is there a duration for that? So those are the three questions for me. Thank you.
Mr. Crosby.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Singh. So in terms of the procurement of the contract for software, so when I'm talking about savings, I'm talking about the savings of delivering a digital permit as opposed to savings generated through a re-procurement. The procurement's locked in for, off the top of my head, Liz, it's probably, we're normally looking at 5 years. Is it five? Okay, so four years plus a 3-year optional extension, 3-year extension after that. So again, if we're in a position at the end of that 4-year contract where they are looking to renegotiate price, we consider whether we need to retender, etc. So that security is there through the procurement process. In terms of kind of resilience and our ability to manage outages, as you say, it does and can happen. If we were in that position, obviously, as a local authority, we have means of communicating via either social media and or website to say there was an outage. At the point of that was occurring, if that did occur, and we had some live concerns about enforcement, we can pause enforcement, we can take decisions based on the outage and how quickly we're going to get the system back up. So we were not going to go around penalising people if the system's not working. And your third point, Councillor. I believe it would be the same as we have with the current scratchbook system. So
Thank you. Okay, thank you. That concludes that part of the items. So we all agreement with the actions on point 1 to point 7. Committee agree? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. Next item we have is the discretionary parking permit, which is due to the confidentially the percent of the section 100A Local Government Act, member of public and press to leave the building, which I don't see anything. Can we turn off the ITT system as well, microphones and stuff?